A lot of people send one welcome email, which has 15 different steps. And it's just too much, even though you have the best intentions, people won't go through all the steps. So you break it down into chunks. Send like one piece of information over the next 7 days, send sequence of three emails, and give them time to breathe and give them time to explore. More people will go through it, so they're already getting small wins and they feel better about themselves compared to one long email and missing important bits and pieces.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because we're going to talk about group programs and specifically the mistakes that coaches make that will have people not signing up, to really creating a high churn, all sorts of problems in your group program. And I've invited Filip Sardi along to the show to talk about those mistakes and how we can get around them. So welcome, Filip.
Great. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about like 5, 7, or 17 mistakes, how much time we got to cover.
That's funny because at the beginning I was like, why don't we talk about the 7 group program mistakes? And you're like, 7? There's like 17. So I said, well, let's just see what we can cover today and work through them, because I think that once people understand what some of those major mistakes are, maybe their eyes will be open to being able to see some of the others or where some of the other gaps are. And I know that you're going to be walking us through your client flow framework, so that will be super helpful. But what I'd like to start off with was, what got you into this exact type of work? Because there's always something that is like, I saw this thing and it wasn't working. So I'd love to know your story.
Yeah, it's kind of predictable, but yeah, just like going a bit back, for the longest time, I was actually a launch strategist. So I helped my clients take care of the first part of client journey, which was getting leads and sales. And I did that like for years. And we did a lot of big client launches. Just imagine like having 70,000 people in the launch and getting thousands of clients then into memberships and courses and all that stuff. And the story was always the same, everything was perfect until the moment people said yes. And then after they got into the programs, it was like, okay, the industry standard is like 5% success rates. It's fine. We can always do the second launch and just like recoup what we churn. And at first I didn't understand that, but like with time, I started not liking that approach. And really it became basically just the financials for my clients, at least most of my clients. And I was always passionate more about like really taking care of your clients. And then it was like this big disconnect with me with time. And I just said, okay, I'm drawing the line here. I want to like explore what happens on the other side of client journey and make sure that clients are taken care of. This is like Inception.
Yeah, it's very meta.
Yeah.
So I know that you were talking there about people leaving. It costs more to actually bring in a client than to keep a client. So I can see that straight away. That's a problem. But there's more than that. And you alluded to it there. It's like the journey that we're taking our customers on or our clients on. And I'm a big believer that that really happens through your marketing, and it just sort of continues. We talk about it in my programs that the client journey really starts in how do they get that information and then how do we onboard them. Can you talk us through in your framework where that journey starts?
It starts the moment after clients say yes. And I want to take just a slightly step back to connect to the marketing part that you were saying, because one of the big things I've noticed and still notice is what's called the expectation versus reality gap, which is, a lot of people do this like fancy marketing and they build up the expectations. And the moment people say yes, they give the money and then they get in and then it's like, oh, this is what I paid for. And they're like looking around and getting maybe, one onboarding email announcement about like one monthly call. And they were promised like, you will be taken care of. We will give you everything. You'll get results in 7 days and all the lovely, shiny promises that people love to make. So yeah, I totally agree with you that it has to be like the entire journey. But I know a lot of people, like I've said, take great care of the first part. So I'm like, okay, you've did all the work, you invested so much time, money, and energy. So let's just like keep like focusing and making sure that people are taken care of even after. Like even if you put in 10% more like effort and energy into the second part, you're gonna be like well above and in front of like I would say 90% of even more of your competition because people aren't still paying attention to that part.
Mm. Let's just step back for one tiny second and set the context so that I make sure that we bring people along for this ride. Can you
Okay,
talk about the four different stages of your client flow framework before we
of
go
course.
back and really dig deep into onboarding?
Okay, it's basically simple. Just imagine like you got into a group coaching program, for example, or just a group program. What is the first milestone that needs to be really sorted out? It's the activation, which I like to call activate, which is okay. First 7 to 14 days are crucial because you need to continue the original experience, and at the same time, what's really important is for you as a client to get like first small like win
Yes.
because we need small wins. Like we are here for the big outcome, but a big outcome comes after stacking like many small wins. So that's the first thing. We're excited, we're getting small wins, we know where to go, what to do. The second milestone is educate. It's
Mm-hmm.
how we go through the knowledge without kind of staying in the loop of one more lesson, what I like to call. It's just like, oh, I need to watch this module and that module, and then we never get to implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that we have the essential part of the like education without giving out too much and keeping people in the knowledge loop too long. Then the implementation, of course, like how do we actually implement what we've learned and stack those small wins? That's the biggest key. Because a lot of people get overwhelmed when they go through like all the modules and they learn and learn and learn, and then it's like, oh, I need to put this into plan, into action, and it's okay, how do I do it? And then they're overwhelmed. So making sure that there is a connection from education to implementation, and in the end, what does it mean to celebrate with your clients? How do you celebrate the small wins? How do you lead them to the big outcome? And what happens after? Because there is a big percentage of people who maybe need more time, who maybe need more support, and maybe need like additional hand holding on to continue their journey with you. But oftentimes there is nothing afterwards. It's just like, oh, the program has ended. Bye. So that's it. Activate, educate, implement, and celebrate. And when you just like take care of those four milestones, then you'll have better success rates, better client retention, and more backend revenue. It's simple as that.
I love it so much already. So, one of the group program mistakes that we've obviously already talked about a little bit is onboarding
Yes.
and the fact that people come in and sort of look around and go, oh, okay, so we're here. What
Mhm.
are some of the pieces that we can put in part of our ecosystem to ensure that our clients are getting really looked after in their onboarding?
Mhm. For example, you can surprise them with something that's slightly different than other people do. For example, my secret weapon is our apps like Bonjoro, which is a video messaging app where I can just record a simple welcome message to my clients and I get automatic notification, hey, Samantha has joined your program, record a welcome video. I just pull the phone out, say, hey, Samantha, welcome, and here are the next steps. So it's a pattern interrupt and it's something personal and different in the classical like onboarding sequence. That just like it's a small thing, but it means a lot to clients.
So, just to confirm, you're using that if someone's clicking a link to sign up, not necessarily sales call?
No, no, no. After they joined. So when they joined, basically I get a notification that you have joined the program, and then I want to wish you a welcome personally over the video, and you get the notification in the email. Philip has recorded the video for you.
Love it, love it. All right. Is there any other in your 1777 group program mistakes that we can touch on in the onboarding?
Yeah, so a lot of people send one welcome email, which has 15 different steps. And it's just too much, even though you have the best intentions, people won't go through all the steps. So you break it down into chunks. Think about, okay, send like one piece of information over like the next 7 days, send three sequence of three emails and give them time to breathe and give them time to explore and just to first like, okay, log in and look around the platform. Second is make sure to book all the schedule and book all the calls that we have normally every week. And then the third thing is, hey, introduce yourself. And then you've broken it down to small chunks. More people will go through it, so they're already getting small wins and they feel better about themselves compared to one long email and missing important bits and pieces.
I love that so much. That's so easy. All right, let's talk about the educate piece. So we've onboarded
Yeah.
our client, we've sent them the emails, they're onboarded. I know there's all sorts of problems in this area.
Yeah.
Let's just cover some off now.
Okay. So one of the biggest things we're doing lately with clients in that area is actually trimming the content of their programs. And disclaimer, this doesn't mean that we are changing your program or that, for example, my framework interferes with like your expertise. You know how to bring the transformation to your clients. But a lot of times we try to provide and prove the value by creating a ton of content, by saying, hey, I have 15 hours of videos. Look at me, like I'm really helping you. Not even helping, I'm gonna save you with 15 hours of videos. And
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
you see that now, like this, we are getting into totally different direction because people don't have time, they don't spend that
Yes.
attention, AI and all that stuff that we're gonna talk about later. So I'm just getting into, okay, what are the essentials each of the, let's say, steps of your framework needs to have in terms of like short videos that clients can do just this step and then move on to the next one. Everything else we remove, either put it into bonus areas or we offer it as an upgrade if someone wants to learn more, but it's not directly connected to the essential steps or of your transformation or the framework. So that's one simple
Ah.
thing that we can do.
Do you know what I love about that is that there's a lot of clients, even though they're super busy, that will watch all the videos because it's almost like their procrastination strategy. I
Exactly.
can't get it wrong if I'm watching the videos. All the strategies under the sun, but if I watch all the videos, essentially, I'm not going to fail at something. So almost taking them away is
Yeah.
is like herding the cattle into the right place to get that win. That's super smart.
And the thing is, for example, in one of my programs for a regional audience here in Croatia, the focus is creating the irresistible offer, the classics, how to create ideal offer for ideal audience. But then at the same time, I was getting a ton of questions like, okay, yes, about the offer, but we also want to know how to create a course. And I was, no way I'm gonna record and add this as part of the essentials, but if you really want, and if there is enough of you, I'll gladly create like a 4-week bootcamp where all of you can upgrade if you want. And
Mm.
40% of clients said yes and just like had a detour in their client journey, learned that part and went back into implementation of the original offer. So you can play around with it and then
Clever.
it gives you a lot of options of additional upgrades and upsells which are natural and not forced.
So that was a really great case study. What are some other ways that you've seen, well, either you or some of your clients have done that
Mhm.
also helps people in this overconsumption?
Making sure that on top of videos, there are like checklists or steps for them to really understand what are the essentials, like takeaways or points of the video. So they know exactly, okay, if I watch this video, this is what I need to get out of it, and that's it. And if they have a clarity, for example, on the group call, we can address specific steps of the process and they can ask specific questions. And if we are like super specific, then there is like they can't get lost or hide behind, oh, I watched like you said, like, oh, the recording of the past, I don't know, course, because a lot of people love to put like past webinar recordings and stuff like that to kind of enrich the program. And there's nothing to hide behind. It's just like, okay, have you watched the module 2 video, which is 3 minutes long? Yes. Okay, what are the next steps? And that's it. So trying to move and remove any obstacles possible and giving them 100% clarity, at least from my experience.
Totally love that. All right, let's talk about the implementation phase because this is really where rubber hits the road. This is what's
Yes.
going to have clients actually staying in the program is actually getting these wins that you're talking about. Let's sort of cover off the problems first. What are some of the problems that you see in the implementation phase of a client journey?
Okay, from like watching literally thousands of clients from like my clients' programs, I've seen that there are, in a way, two different types of learners who either have to go through the entire course, and the other ones are action takers who go through a module and then start implementing. And we always counted that we are gonna have the second type of implementers, which are like action takers, and that's the smallest segment of our audience. We all want like super A player action takers, but that's maybe like 5 to 7%.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't account for the rest where they need nurturing, accountability, and assistance, but with clear boundaries. So that's the like
Mm-hmm.
that's important thing. We just
Yeah.
want to provide support for the implementation, but then we get lost in all that support. And then as we scale the programs, it kind of blocks us because we don't have time and energy to scale it. Like, okay, we can support 20 people, but we can't support implementation of 40, 50, and 60.
Mm.
And that's not the case. The case is we just don't have healthy boundaries, and we are trying to
Yes.
make up for not a lack of accountability from our clients with our hand holding, which is like not the proper way to do it. So basically the
Mm.
mistake isn't in the structure of the program, it's in our approach, how we support the client.
I actually had this problem back in about 20, actually, I know when it was. It was at the beginning of 2020 when you know exactly what happened then. And I wanted to make sure that my clients were really looked after and supported as we were going through a phase that no one knew what was happening. And I started to get really resentful because I was getting messages at 10 o'clock at night, or I was getting messages at, 6 a.m. with people like freaking out, like, I need an answer. And it took me a little bit, it took me a few days to realize, oh, I'm resentful, but it's not their fault they've sent the message. It's my fault because I haven't turned my phone off. Like, I realized it was me that hadn't set the boundaries. And as soon as I set the boundaries, it all leveled out again. Clients were still feeling supported, but I wasn't
Mhm.
feeling resentful because it was kind of on my terms. And it wasn't that I was getting back to them 7 days later. It was just, I'll get back to you in a few hours once I've got out of bed, kind of thing.
Exactly. You explained it beautifully. It's just like you didn't respond at 11 p.m. You basically responded just a few hours later, and it was a normal thing. And we don't initially get that part, but clients like they will take whatever they can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make yourself available 24/7, they won't say no because you made yourself available. But if you create a container and they know exactly, okay, on Thursdays we have a live Zoom call, you submit your questions. Okay, if you have, I don't know, hands-on support, you have maybe private WhatsApp channel. Okay, you can send me a message, but it takes 6 to 12 hours for me to respond, and you have to really follow the structure of your question and stuff like that, like simple instructions for them to know how and when they reach you and what's included and what's not included. Because I have a lot of people who I notice they're really quick action takers, but they start with group option and they just want to get there faster. And I reach out to
Yes.
them. I don't have problems with that. And I just say, hey, I see that you're really getting at it fast. Let's upgrade you to one-on-one. We can be done with it in 6 weeks. It's gonna be well worth of your investment because I see that I can really help you personally. And that's it. If they say no, perfect, fine. We keep the support as it is. If they say yes, they're gonna be there faster. So again,
Mm.
upgrading and upselling, which is I don't know when and why I got like the ickiness in terms of like the word, but it's a normal thing to offer to people extra support if you see that they need it or they can benefit from it.
So we've talked about the boundaries for time, but I just want to dive into that a little bit more, the boundaries of the content. What are some
Mhm.
ways that that can be set right from the beginning? Because I've seen programs where people are allowed to come and ask just about anything and it's got nothing to even
Mhm.
do with the program. And all of a sudden you're sharing all of your IP for some huge, mastermind that's normally 5 times the price. And I will share a little bit in a minute of what I've seen, how someone else does this, and I think it's brilliant. But I'd love to hear how you get around or help your clients set the boundary for that content.
Can you explain that a bit more, just so I understand
Yeah.
the question?
So we've talked before about maybe having like a Q&A call or a hot seat,
Mm-hmm.
and some clients will come to the Q&A call and ask about something that's not even in the program.
Ah, okay.
How do you create the boundary around the content?
I just redirect them back to, okay, what is like, if that's not part of the program, it's okay. Either I have the extra resource in terms of, hey, you can watch this podcast episode, or you can visit my friend Samantha's website because she's an expert in that. And hey, what is the biggest challenge you're having at the moment with implementation? Is it like module 2, 3, or 5? What is the step of the process? Because I had people like hijack group calls
Mm.
in the past, and I didn't know how to handle that because, strong personalities, they would be loud and they were just like, oh, Philip, what is this? What is that? Like, give me this. Oh, how did you record your podcast? And this is not even about podcasts, like we're
Right?
miles away from it. And I was like, okay, let's time out, please. Let's go back to this. But if more of you want to know about like podcast recording basics, I'm willing to record a one-off workshop if you're willing to join. Yes, you are. 10 of you, perfect. I'm gonna sell it to my front-end audience as well, and then I'm gonna make money if I'm gonna be sharing additional IP that people ask me for. So
I
yeah.
like that. I like that. I just want to share something that I've seen just recently, and I thought it was so clever, is a framework for asking a question in a Q&A call where you have to say, I'm in this module at this timestamp in the video, and I don't
Okay.
understand this exact thing. And I was like, oh my goodness, how clever is that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the framework that they have to come to the Q&A call with, is that they have to actually say what part of the video they were watching and why that part didn't make sense. So I just thought that would be a nice little something to pop in there.
It is, and it's perfect. And on like for people who maybe haven't scaled yet and are afraid, for example, if you have, I don't know, 50 people in your cohort, in your group, you normally get maybe 20-25% of people showing up live. So even if
Mhm,
you have like 50 people, you may have, I don't know, 15 people on the live calls, and you can handle that with structure without a problem
mhm,
because it's not just about supporting them on the call. They get like other means of support for the implementation. For example, maybe it's a good time for us to open up the AI topic, but with all these new AI tools, you can get like custom chat GPTs that give instructions based on your content and your framework where they can come prepared. So this is something we've started implementing lately. It's like if they have implementation task, they have a custom GPT. They fill out like they would fill out the worksheet materials. They added their tone, of course. I hate when people are just like copying generic stuff, but they
mhm.
come, let's say, half prepared and we can have a solid discussion instead of starting from scratch because they haven't done the work. So that's something I'm testing at the moment, but I'm seeing huge improvements in like that learning versus implementation step and getting closer to the final outcome.
Are you finding that people, like your students or clients, are coming to the call and the answers aren't as in depth because they already have got quite a good grasp and they're now asking questions that are just filling the gaps?
Yeah. So the thing is, before I would repeat myself and I would be fine with it in terms of, okay, let's start from scratch. Okay, here is how you create an irresistible offer. Even though all of that was in modules 1, 2, and 3, I would
Hmm.
repeat on live calls. And then I learned like, okay, I'm wasting time. Well, for people who really want specific just feedback and fine tuning of their offers before they like launch it live. So now we get to fine tuning and I get to ask them specific questions. For example, hey, is this how your audience is really saying? What's the different take that you can take on that? Like, who's the profile of the audience? We're just fine tuning, and others are learning so much because now they're learning from live examples, not just like the educational part of the course. And it made a lot of work easier.
Mm. Apart from the GPTs that you're
Mhm.
specifically writing, how else are you using AI in your programs?
So, for example, I lost a lot of time, and my personal assistant lost a lot of time when we would do all these summaries for weekly calls
Hmm.
and takeaways. And now I use apps like Fathom. Basically, that's my go-to app where I can personally save 3 to 4 hours a week. I can get the takeaways, I can get the challenges, I can get ideas for the topics, and I can get the summaries to the students on top of like recordings in literally 30 minutes.
Mm.
So that's money and time saved. And that's at the moment when I just like applied to programs and managing groups, that's one of the biggest things, like custom GPTs and summaries, takeaways, and ideas for nurturing and motivating students.
Mm. Me and one of actually two of our coaches, we crack up laughing every time we think, "Oh my goodness, we were going all over the place on something," and you get the fathom, and it's just like, how did it get it spot on with all of that we were talking about?
Exactly.
It saves so much time, and it is incredible how it manages to get those takeaways so clear. I 100% recommend Fathom.
Do you use custom prompts in Fathom as well? Because, for
Oh,
example, after
oh my
after the
goodness.
calls, yeah, because
Oh,
after the
tell me
calls,
more.
yes, I ask it questions to probe my approach to supporting and teaching, depending on type of a call, and where were the bottlenecks, where maybe I did like the monologue and I
Yep.
diluted the value, or where was something that where I missed the context, or where I repeated myself, or any other patterns. And basically, I get perfect feedback with the timeline links where I can check where I was making good or bad decisions. And then that way I'm learning as well. And again, it's just a simple prompt, and I can do this in 10 minutes, write my notes, and be better prepared for the next one.
Oh my goodness, that's gold. That is so good. How are you
Okay.
using your own trainings, like transcripts or the Fathom, to
Mhm.
then give the information to create the GPTs?
So we start with basics. So here are the course materials. For example, module 2 materials. Here is the worksheet, the workbook. Okay, what are the steps of the process that need to happen for it to understand? Here is the terms dictionary. So if someone asks questions that are related to the frameworks, so it knows how to explain. And this is the starting point. And when we have specific calls and call recordings and transcripts related to that topic, I just add on takeaways and materials so it kind of learns and gets a bit smarter in pattern recognition. And that's it. And then the key of custom GPT is give it instructions how to deal with all the materials. And I just give it like, okay, follow my voice, my tone, take them step by step. If they have questions, just try to explain in my language. And I restrict it from connecting to the internet because it can also do,
Ah,
yeah, because if it has the ability of internet connection, then it does its own research, and then it mixes different things and
got
different
it.
coaches takeaways and all that, and then you have a Frankenstein of the framework, which is not yours anymore, and people get confused. So basically, I give it instructions, and the good thing is when clients are going through that part, it doesn't save in its memory. If you
Mhm.
delete it, you have deleted information forever. And that's the part I like because I don't save it, I don't see it other than if they're not sharing the chat and stuff like that. So in a way, it's private, but we don't know. They say they don't save it, but we don't know. But at least
We have
I have a
no idea
comfort
what's
in.
going on behind there,
Exactly,
do we? Behind that
exactly.
curtain.
Yeah. But when I look at it like in terms of like the general search, it doesn't connect to that part of the memory. So maybe it's hiding, or maybe it really doesn't save it to the memory. But still, we don't know, like you said.
Mm, mm. Oh, I love the saying that our clients can or will leave when they run out of future. You talked before about having micro wins in the onboarding.
Yeah.
How do you continue those micro wins through the program, or can you give us some tips on how to do that through the educate and the implementation phase so they
Yeah.
continue to get those small micro wins along the way?
So basically, when I talk to people about, okay, what is the final outcome and what are the like milestones and micro wins, we start with the end in mind. Okay, here is the big one, the biggest. Okay, you're gonna launch the offer, and the offer is gonna be super successful, and you're gonna get a bunch of students in. And then we dissect all the milestones in, okay, what are small tangible steps that you can measure, and then that you can celebrate your clients for. So we have the basics. Okay, onboarding has completed. Yes, that's one of the wins. But what's the first client win? They introduce themselves in the community. Perfect. We celebrate that. When they start educating, they have reported that they have completed first module. Perfect. We do that. So then we go to specific mini outcomes for client programs. So for example, just to be more specific in my like creating irresistible offer, you better understand your ideal client. So you have ideal client profile. Yes, that's a win, and we celebrate that. Okay, you understand your resources and what type of offer is best for you. That's another win. And then the final one is you create the actual offer. So we predetermine all the micro wins that we can celebrate on top of the classic ones, course is completed. That's the most classic, and I call it vanity metric because it doesn't mean a thing. We all finish the
Mm-hmm.
modules, and that doesn't mean a thing. So those are the things that my clients have control of. They don't have the control of when they launch the offer, what's going to happen. But by that point, they feel so good about themselves because they have stacked so many small wins. Then even if offer doesn't work for the first time, they know they're going to iterate, they're going to get results, but they have already won before we actually launch the offer, which is a
Mm.
huge thing.
Love it so much. What are some of the ways that you have seen, well, some of the ways that you have done this and you've seen other clients do this? Just checklists. I mean, I've seen things like bingo cards. I've seen all sorts of different like gamification.
Mhm.
Can you give us some ideas of some of the ways that you've seen that works really well?
So the most basic one is having a checklist for each of, for example, maybe not modules, but each steps of the process. Because I like to avoid modules because that those are not the courses. We are going through the transformation. So every coach and every educator has the process of transformation. So each of the steps that leads us closer to transformation has a specific set of wins. So it can be like the basic checklist, or it can be if you have maybe advanced, I don't know, course platform or client support platform, then you can predetermine when they're gonna get the notification, like you said, for the gamification, for the win. So they get a email celebrating, or they get a notification in the app, and that's more advanced. But I want to focus when I talk to people not to overcomplicate that part, because the big win for course creators is already knowing to support their clients throughout the process and what the small wins are. So if you're watching this and thinking, oh my God, adding another like layer of complexity, gamification, all that stuff is too much, just skip that part and list the small wins and just celebrate your clients for those small wins. It's gonna matter so much more than having like a fancy gamification
Mm,
platform.
totally. Now, I know that you've got a strategy guide. Can you talk us a little bit through what people will get from downloading that?
So it's basically a more in-depth approach to the framework we've just shared. And there are a couple of suggestions and mini case studies that they can implement immediately into their programs to start getting better results. Not just better client success rates, but at the same time, a couple of ideas of creating additional upgrade and upsell offers for their programs. And I'm basically on a mission to make, let's not call them upsells, but upgrades cool again and normal, and as a natural next step for people. So it's a combination of those two important things: client success
Mm.
and client upgrades.
I like that. I like that because I think upgrades have got some people have made them really icky, but
Mhm.
they don't have to be. And in actual fact, if people are getting successes along the way, then the upgrade is natural. So I love that.
Yep.
Of course, wherever you're listening on whatever app, just scroll down. The link for Philip's strategy guide will be down below so that you can click that. And I know that if you've been listening, there'll be a ton of value in that. But Philip, if someone's been listening and they're like, all right, it's time to do a bit of an overhaul on my program, what is the place that they would start? Where would they begin this journey of giving the overhaul so that they're not just going down a rabbit hole?
The first thing I would do is examine where the biggest bottlenecks for them are at the moment. So instead of thinking, oh, I need to restructure the entire program, I would get them thinking, where I'm struggling the most at the moment, where I'm losing the most energy at the moment, where do clients demand most from me? Is it in the beginning? Do they have like a million questions? Is it during the implementation and I don't have the boundaries? Do clients fade away and I don't know where did they go? So I would first identify where those bottlenecks are and start from there, because probably you don't need to rehaul the program. You just need to kind of tweak the journey so it makes sense to you and your clients better. And that's it.
Love it so much. Filip, thanks so much for coming onto the show and sharing your framework. I love it. And I think that not only is this something good for our clients, but it is something good for us too. It's an absolute win-win. So great framework. Thanks so much for sharing.
Perfect. And thank you for having me again.